All right, welcome back to the Powers on Sports podcast. Thanks for finding us and all the different podcast platforms that you may be listening to us. We are in the thralls of training camp underway all over the National Football League, and we are doing part 2 of our division breakdown series, and we've got a great guest to break down both the AFC and NFC North. We're going to be talking to David Moulton. David is the host of the Miller and Moulton radio show. He also does work for Sirius XM Sports Radio. He's also very much affiliated with the SEC on CBS every week on CBS, as well as his new gig, which will extend his weekend a little bit to now Monday Night Football, working with ESPN and Troy Aikman and Joe Buck. So welcome back to the podcast, David.
Jason, thanks for the phone call. Always nice to chat. 2 divisions, huh? You're really putting me to work today.
First question is, what are you going to do with your extra day off? Easier travel for you this season. You got a little Sunday to get to where you got to be without having to stress so much about having to be somewhere.
Yeah, the last 4 years, I mean, obviously, I'm lucky to be associated with the broadcasters I get to work with. But yeah, I was doing Thursday night, Saturday afternoon, and late Sunday afternoon football. So 3 games are now 2. And so the travel's a little easier. Plus Saturday and Monday, it's spaced out. So I'll still be gone. You know, my wife and I will shake hands here in about 5 weeks, and I'll see her in mid-January. But it'll be easier on this old man.
I got you. Do great work. All right. Before we get to the football, before we get to the NFL, I want to get just a quick comment on some of the college football stuff going on. What are your thoughts on all the realignment and stuff that you're seeing all around the country? USC, UCLA. What's the next move? Is it Clemson? Is it Miami? Is it Florida State? Just your general thoughts on everything going on.
Jason, if Notre Dame doesn't join a conference, I think it may just be USC, UCLA. I would turn it around on you and everybody listening and watching. You tell me the team that would get ESPN to give the SEC more money than what they're already going to give them beginning in 2024. I mean, who moves the needle, who's out there that ESPN is saying to the SEC, hey, you got to get these guys? And, is it Miami? Maybe, if Cristobal brings them back and they look as if they're close. Yeah, Miami moves the needle a little bit. Clemson moves the needle a little bit. But if you're ESPN, you already have Miami and Clemson. They're in the ACC. You've already got to deal with them.
Right.
So, and not only, remember, ESPN has to ante up so much money that when they divvy up the pie 16 ways, if you're going to make it 18 or 20, that all the other schools make more money, that they don't make less. And I don't know that there's anybody out there. Now, Notre Dame joins the Big Ten, which I think they would do, although the ACC thinks they would join them, then all hell can break loose.
Right.
But to me, if Notre Dame either hangs tight or joins the ACC, I think the Big Ten and SEC look at one another and go, we're good. Right. Now the Big 12, whole Pac-12 thing, and does the Big 12 poach them, which I think they're going to try to do, but to be honest, Jason, if Notre Dame stays independent, we really have 2 super conferences.
Right.
If Notre Dame joins the ACC, then we have 3 with the Big 12 kind of waving their hand going, hey, don't forget about us.
Right.
But the other deadline to keep in mind is, when are we going to have a new playoff? And it's not until 2026. The current playoff system is in place for 4 more years. And that's why, Jason, I think the SEC and the Big Ten are going to hang tight. Notre Dame, I think, is going to stay status quo. NBC is going to give them the money they want, and they're going to stay. And the other 2 conferences are going to, USC, UCLA goes one way, Oklahoma, Texas goes the other. And then they're going to negotiate whatever our new playoff system is.
Right.
And then once they negotiate that, then, Jason, I think all bets are off as to what could happen. But that's 2026.
Great answer. That's an excellent answer. All right, let's get to the National Football League. Training camps are underway all around the league. You got lots of storylines. Obviously, we're going to hit the AFC and NFC North, and we're going to start in the AFC North. And let's go right to the top. Let's go to the team that came out of nowhere last year and shocked us all. Made a great run all the way to the Super Bowl. Lost a great game. Excuse me, a great finish to the Rams, the Cincinnati Bengals. 10-7 last year. Head coach Zach Taylor. Huge Super Bowl run. Huge additions in the offseason to fortify their offensive line. Lyle Collins, Kappa here from down here in Tampa, Ted Karras. O-line was the number one option that they had to address, and give Mike Brown credit. He was aggressive. He went out and did it. Who knows if these guys are, I mean, they're good players. They've been good players. So will they be good players in Cincinnati? We'll see. Just your general thoughts about the Bengals. Joe Burrow, the emergence of Joe Burrow last year.
Well, Joe Burrow's awesome. He's top 5 quarterback in the league already. Jason, if I were to ask you, first off, take the postseason run out of the equation. The Bengals were a 10-7 regular season team. They were not a great regular season team.
Right.
They were good to very good at times. So now in certain areas like the offensive line, I definitely think they're better. The Jesse Bates safety contract dilemma, I don't think that's going to go over real well. He's been a 100 tackle a year guy for 4 years. He's very well liked. He's a good player. He's 25 years old. Yep. I think if they deal him, it's going to send a signal, wow, I guess loyalty and producing doesn't mean much, except for maybe Joe Burrow. So we all better make sure we treat the Bengals as a business. And so that situation, I think, bears watching. What I wonder about, Jason, we've had teams like the 2008 Arizona Cardinals and the Carolina Panthers with Jake Delhomme back in the day, Jacksonville from 5 years ago, who goes on they were 10-6 in the regular season, but 6 minutes from the Super Bowl. So we viewed them as this terrific team. I'm a little cautious about the Bengals also because I think both the Browns and the Ravens, particularly the Ravens, will be better this year. Teams in the AFC North play the NFC South, which there's only 2 good teams in that division. So that's a break. And the AFC East, in which there's 3 good teams. So they're crossover games, if you will. 5 of the 8 teams you have to consider good.
Right.
Also, they're in the AFC. Jason, I think somebody's going to win 10 games this year and miss the playoffs in the AFC. I mean, think about it. Jacksonville, Houston, the Jets. Name me another bad team in the AFC.
Right. None.
Okay. So that means you're competing against 13, what you consider pretty good or good teams for 7 spots. That to me says you could win 10 games and not make it. Remember, we had, 2 years ago, you had to win 11 in 2020 to make the playoffs in the AFC.
Right. No, you're right. No, you're right. I'm with you. I think playing with expectations could be an issue for the Bengals this year. And like you made a great point about Jesse Bates. Mike Brown's not known to be the most freewheeling guy with his checkbook when it comes to paying guys. So
and he's very stubborn. Think back to the Carson Palmer situation in which he said, retire. I don't care.
Right.
So, I mean, the Bengals can be as hardline as anybody. I'll say this, Jason. I think they're better than Pittsburgh.
Right.
And if Cleveland had Deshaun for 17, I think Cleveland's as good or better, but we all think they're going to be lucky to get him for maybe half the season. For what it's worth, Jason, to me, the Ravens were the number 1 seed in the AFC, and then Lamar got hurt.
Right.
And I think they are so much better this year than they were at the same point in time last year when the injuries hit. I think this is a big bounce back year for the Ravens. They won 8 games last year with one of the 5 worst defenses in the NFL. Yeah, that ain't going to happen again this year. I like the Ravens to win the North.
And it's like you said, the Bengals with the skill players they have, Jamar Chase, Mixon, Boyd, Higgins. To me, the defense, they're average. They're good. They're not great. You don't have any impact names of guys that you say, we have to block that guy.
But they did get, I think, 43 sacks last year. That was the big upgrade on defense. They went from no pressure to pressure. And remember, the one end that they picked up in free agency, he had like Hendrickson, he had 14.5 by himself.
Trey Hendrick.
So they created pressure last year, in part, Jason, because for the first time in a long time, they played with the lead occasionally.
Correct.
But you're right. The secondary, especially corner, was kind of iffy. I do think they've improved their offensive line, though.
Absolutely.
Do I think they're a strong contender for a wild card? Yes. But for what it's worth, I think the Ravens are a game better.
It'll be interesting to see how much more control Zach Taylor gives Joe Burrow. I know what I love about Burrow is his swagger. I mean, he would get, I don't care if he got hit 20 times in a game, he got up every single time. He never flinched. He never, he got up every time.
You go all the way back to when he went to LSU. Everybody remembers the national championship year, but he played 2 years there.
The
year before, he transferred from Ohio State. And by the way, how about picking Haskins instead of Joe Burrow? Remember, that was Urban Meyer.
Yes.
They picked Dwayne Haskins over, and they won a lot of games, but still picking the late Dwayne Haskins over Joe Burrow. I don't know about that. Right. So Burrow goes to LSU. He arrives late. He knows nobody there. He immerses himself. He wins all the competitions. And I don't just mean for the job. I mean, he wins the workout competitions, the whole deal. And he's voted a captain before he's ever played a game. I mean, Joe Burrow is just the guy.
Right.
He's got
football
it also. And people will follow him, off the edge of the earth. And the Bengals are in incredible shape for the next 10 to 12 years, as long as he can stay healthy, because he is a stud.
All right, let's go to Baltimore. You mentioned Baltimore, and I'm with you. John Harbaugh, 8-9 last year. First round addition of Kyle Hamilton, kind of a steal there. They got him late in the first round, later than a lot of people thought. Another steal, Linderbaum, the center out of Iowa, who they really are going to lean on heavily, as well as Ojabu, who may not be an impact player early, but with his with his Achilles injury, but again, another guy they think they stole. They traded Hollywood Brown out to Arizona for a first-round pick, which a lot of people thought, wow, how do you get a first-round pick for him, which is great. Lamar's contract situation, obviously we're recording this during training camp. Who knows what's going to happen? He's eventually going to get paid. What are your quick thoughts on Lamar, him representing himself versus having an agent?
Jason, I don't think it matters. The market sets itself, to be honest with you. I think the only way it matters is the structuring of the contract. Right. Maybe the Ravens will get one over on him, but he's going to get between 48 and 52 million a year. I mean, right now, Aaron's at 53, number two's at 46.1. Right. Lamar's going to get somewhere in between. I say it's 5 for 250, maybe 6 for 300, and 2/3 of it to 75% of it's guaranteed. Right. And let's go. I don't think this is that complicated, to be honest with you. I think the structuring of it is, quite frankly, what they're discussing. I don't think really, maybe they're arguing over a year, but I mean, come on. I mean, the market is what the market is. He's going to have to get paid. So, 5 for, I don't know, 240, 250, 6 for 280, 300, something like that.
I got you. And like I said, I'm with you. I think it'll get worked out eventually here. All right. The big Ravens deal from last year, injuries. They were decimated last year. Dobbins was out. They lost Gus Edwards. They lost a bunch of their skill guys. Do the Ravens have enough skill players around Lamar other than Mark Andrews to get him over the top?
Well, they have 6 tight ends, and it's an offense. No. But they don't necessarily have the wide receivers.
Right.
They're going to be, they're a bit old school. I mean, they're like the wing T, and the passing game a lot of times is to Mark Andrews or 2 other tight ends.
Right.
So the big question with the Ravens is going to be, if you put them in a 2-score deficit in the third quarter, will they be able to play come from behind football? It's just going to be really difficult, Jason, to put them in a 2-score deficit in the third quarter. You got to remember, they lost both corners.
Right.
We're talking Pro Bowl caliber corners. They lost them both last year. Neither played a game. They now have 3 safeties who would start for just about anybody in the league. If, knock on wood, if the Ravens stay healthy, they're going to be a very good regular season team. Can they win in January? They've only won 1 playoff game with Lamar. That, to me, is the big question. The regular season, not a question.
A sneaky move that will be interesting to see how it works itself out. Don Martindale, the defensive coordinator, no longer there. Harbaugh brings in his brother's defensive coordinator from Michigan, who used to be a Raven, I think, position coach, linebacker coach, McDonald. How do you think that transition will affect that defense, who's got a ton of talent?
Well, they'll blitz a lot less. They'll be a lot less risky, which, quite frankly, with the way they play on offense, is probably how they should play. To be honest, there's no reason for them to be as risky now as they are. Or have been, put it that way.
Right. It exposes the big play, obviously, which then puts you behind.
And why invite it? Why invite it? You've got a tremendous secondary. You can, if you want, because of that secondary, be very risky. But Martindale was as aggressive as any DC in the league. And I think Harbaugh just decided, I need to dial it back a little bit.
A little more old school football. You're right. Because you're right. Lamar has not proven in the offensive skill around him at wide receiver, especially has not proven that he can come back from 2 scores down, like you mentioned. And I think that's been their bugaboo when they have gotten down in the playoffs, is that inability to do that. So it sounds like you like the Ravens to win the division.
I do.
Health withstanding.
I think for both the Ravens and the Browns, defensively, they'll both be very good. The one question both teams have, defensive tackle, can they defend the run? Like, to me, both teams would really benefit. And I don't know if the Ravens have the money, but the Browns do. Ndamukong Suh, I think, would be a big acquisition for either team, but particularly Cleveland. You got $48 million in cap space. All right. I mean, come on. You got a deficiency inside. Ndamukong Suh's won 2 Super Bowls. Okay, or played for 2 anyway. I mean, and is borderline Hall of Famer and can still play. And he's been unbelievably durable in the second half of his career. Go get him.
Yeah.
Come on. You won $48 million, man, on the salary cap. You can't not go get guys when you have a deficiency. And that's really, if Deshaun plays, the only deficiency the Browns really have is at defensive tackle. And so, to me, go get Suh.
All right, let's head to Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski, 8-9 last year. Obviously, all the huge trade for Deshaun Watson in the offseason. No more. Baker Mayfield finally gets shipped out to Carolina. They lose Jarvis Landry, but they add Amari Cooper from the Cowboys. Most would think that's probably a little bit of an upgrade there. Obviously, the cloud over Deshaun Watson. When we're recording this, we do not have an answer from the league yet about what his suspension will be. I think most of us, you and I included, think at least 8 games. Some think the whole season. We'll see how that ends up shaking itself out. Is Jimmy G a possibility here, do you think?
Well, he is for me. Yeah. If I'm running the Browns, he is. I mean, come on. Jacoby Brissett, when he had to play in New England, they got rid of him. Jacoby Brissett, when he had to play in Indianapolis, they got rid of him. Jacoby Brissett, when he had to play in Miami, they got rid of him. Jacoby Brissett is what he is. He's a backup quarterback. Right. The Browns roster is too good to hand it to a backup quarterback, even for half the season. Acquire Jimmy G, just mentioned the $48 million. You can afford his salary. Most teams can't. And because you can take it off the Niners books, I don't think you have to give him much. I really don't. And so you bring in Jimmy G, and even if it's for half the year, Jason, say he's your starter for the first 8 games. Well, he's got to be a 1-game difference in the standings minimum than Jacoby Brissett. And there's a big difference being 5-3 instead of 4-4, especially in the AFC.
I agree.
Where it's going to be harder to make the playoffs in the NFC. And so, yes. And then, you know what, quite frankly, you might be able to trade Jimmy G at the deadline.
Right.
And bring Deshaun in, and Jacoby backs him up. So, yes, I'm not handing this year to Jacoby Brissett. Not for even 8-9 games. I'm not doing it because at best you'll be 4-4. I'm sorry. I can't throw away a year. I can't. A year in the NFL is like 5 for us in real life. You can't do it.
And especially since Deshaun hasn't played in a year and a half already. I mean, he will have not played in forever, basically. And like you said, they have to survive until Deshaun gets back. You have to be in the race.
And Jason, what's the point of having $48 million in cap room if you're not going to use it to your advantage?
Right.
I mean, they can bring in Ndamukong Suh and trade for Jimmy G and still have $15 million in cap space.
And both of those would be 1-year deals too. It's not like they have multiple years on their contract.
No.
Jimmy G's 1 year and done. Now, I'm with you. That would be. Do you think they're waiting to know what the punishment is from the league to make the move with Jimmy G?
Yes. I think if it's 8 or around there, they're going to hang tight, which I think would be a mistake, obviously. And then if it's the full year, I think they acquire Jimmy G.
Yep, I get you. All right, defense needs to be a little bit better. Like you said, they're deficient at defensive tackle. They had some moments last year where the defense let them down. Obviously, Baker didn't play great, but how do you like Stefanski and that role that he's developing there in Cleveland as the play caller? You got great running. You got the best running back combo in the league. Probably.
I'm giving Stefanski and the front office a mulligan last year. Everybody had a bad year, including Baker, the whole deal. Fine. So I'm giving them a mulligan. Think about what we were thinking of the Browns a year ago today. We were thinking pretty highly of them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give them a mulligan for last year. And then this year, I think we see exactly who everyone is. So one thing to remember, if you believe in Pro Football Focus, Browns had the best coverage units in the NFL last year. Yep. So they got 2 pass rushers and they've got great coverage units. To me, I think they need to upgrade defensive tackle and the linebacker position and otherwise, and they need Deshaun Watson to play, quite frankly.
And here's a sneaky spot and we'll move on. The kicking game. They did not kick the ball very well field goal wise last year. They drafted the kid out of LSU this year. They need to be improved in the kicking game because they're going to be in some close games, especially in that first 8 weeks without Deshaun Watson.
And we saw last year with the Bengals how important having a terrific young kicker is.
Absolutely. All right, quickly on the Steelers. Tomlin, 9-7-1. Ben Swanson, they lose in the wild card. They draft Kenny Pickett. They bring in Mitch Trubisky. New era quarterback. They lose Juju Smith. Your thoughts on Pittsburgh? Are we going to go back to old school Pittsburgh running defense now for the next couple of years?
Well, they did it last year and somehow, some way managed 9-7-1. Here's the big problem for them right now. They only have one decent running back, and that's Najee. If Najee gets hurt, they are in huge trouble.
Right.
Their offensive line is still below average.
Right.
And their wide receiving core, young, talented, but not as elite as it's been in past years. Their defense is outstanding, though. Can you continue to win games in the rough and tumble AFC the way they kind of ham and egg their way through the season last year? To me, they have the worst roster in the division. Not by much, but to me, they're the 4th best roster in that division. And Mitchell Trubisky's the quarterback of it. Tomlin's a Hall of Fame coach. Jason, I think their max is 9. And that Tomlin is due to have his first losing season as head coach. I say the Steelers go 8-9.
Do you think Tomlin potentially looks to get out of there after this year?
No.
You think he's there for the long term?
He's still a very young man. I think, what's he, 51? 52? Yeah. I mean, what else are you going to do that's better than coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers?
True that. And you're right. And if of all years he deserves a mulligan, this will be the year he gets to have his. Hopefully the streak doesn't break, but it probably will, like you said. And you'll see Kenny Pickett, I would imagine, by midseason if he's progressing at all like they think he will. All right, so you're listening to the Powers on Sports podcast and with David Moulton, SEC on CBS, ESPN Monday Night Football, host of the Miller and Moulton Show. Tell the audience what time of the day and where they can find the Miller and Moulton radio show.
Early, damn early, 6 to 10 a.m.
Okay.
Oh, man, floridasportsnetwork.com. But we have a bunch of podcasts. Miss any part of the show, you just go to floridasportsnetwork.com and download it. We have terrific guests. And the show's pretty decent, got to admit. I mean, we're not winning awards or anything, but we're fairly entertaining.
David knows what he's doing for sure on the radio. At the David Moulton on Twitter. I love the Ohio State.
I hate it. It sounds so arrogant, so obnoxious. I absolutely hate it.
Hey, publicity's good or bad, it's still good publicity.
I guess. Wish I had a mulligan for that one.
All right, let's get to the NFC North. Let's start up in Green Bay, where today, actually, a friend of mine, when we're recording this, is actually a shareholder and is at the shareholders meeting today up in Green Bay for the annual shareholders meeting. So I found that out last night from my friend. But Matt LaFleur, 13-4 last year. They lose the terrible game to the 49ers in the divisional round.
Yeah,
they score 7 points, nothing on offense. The only touchdown was special teams related. Rodgers, obviously, the drama with him it's over. He's back. Interesting signing. Devondre Campbell is re-signed. They draft Christian Watson, who's a Tampa kid from down here in Tampa. They bring in 2 Georgia guys. Obviously, they lose Devontae Adams in the huge move, and then they lose Zadarius Smith and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Wide receivers and skill is going to be the question in Green Bay. Can they find wide receivers to make separation? They got a great running game with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. Can they muster enough in the passing game to your liking?
Okay, believe it or not, I'm more concerned about the offensive line at first. Bakhtiari starts on the PUP list. Think about that. He basically missed all of last year with injury. He played for an hour and a half. Couldn't tough it. Okay, and is still not ready at the start of training camp. This is an 18-month injury now. This is a big deal. He's the blindside tackle. This is important. They lost their swing guy on the offensive line. That line is really thin right now. I'm more concerned about the offensive line because Devontae's not there, who could get open quickly, and it was a quick valve for Rodgers. I know they throw a lot of screens and all that, but Aaron may have to hold on to the ball a touch longer this year. The line play to me in the first part of the season is what I'm going to be watching. I think by the end of the year, Jason, I mean, they're going to win the division if Rodgers is healthy. They just are. I mean, they're 2 levels better than anyone else in the division, even though I don't think they're as good a team now as they were when the season ended. The receivers, you know, a full year with Rodgers, they'll be better. In some ways, they're going to be a very difficult out in the playoffs. They're still going to get pressure on the passer. They've got good corners. All right. They're going to be a tough out. I don't think they're going to be the 1 seed, though. They've had home field the last couple of years. I don't think the Packers have home field this year. I could see them winning the division with an 11-6 record. They've won 13 games each of the last 3 years.
Right. I'm with you. I think it's going to be a little bit of a record-wise downgrade. I think the defense is going to be really good, and they're going to win some more games, some more ugly games with the running game. If the offensive line, and if, again, another key guy, Tunyon, if Tunyon can come back at tight end, he'll be a nice safety valve for Rodgers. If he's back healthy, he's had a bad injury as well. So I'm with you. I think we both think they're the class of the division.
By the way, we were talking about who teams in the AFC North should pick up. If you're the Packers, because it's basically Super Bowl or bust.
Right.
Why do you not sign Odell Beckham?
Yeah.
Okay. If he doesn't play for you until January, that's 2 regular season games in the playoffs. And you know what? Sign him to a 2-year deal.
Right.
Low money with incentives for however much he plays this year. He'd probably be the best wide receiver on the team in 2023. I mean, I'm wondering, they've got the money too. They've got like 15, 16 million. I mean, why not Odell Beckham? Just a thought.
I got you. All right, let's head to Chicago. Eberflus hired from Indianapolis, 6-11 last year. They bring in Ryan Poles from Kansas City to be the GM. To me, this is a full rebuild. They lose Khalil. They get rid of Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, Allen Robinson. This is all about 1 year to see what developing Justin Fields. Even though they don't have much offense around him, they want to see what Justin Fields is going to do. To me, this is a full rebuild in Chicago. Your opinion?
I think the Bears have a chance to be on the clock. I think they won. No. And they won 6 games last year.
They're not winning 6.
Betting the under this year. Tough for me to see more than 4. Could be worse.
Yeah.
I think they're doing a tremendous disservice to Justin Fields. Why they didn't keep their best wide receiver? Why didn't they not draft the offensive line before the 4th or 5th round? Right. I mean, they built a secondary in the draft. You're going to be bad and be on the field all the time. Who cares? Right. You need to invest in your quarterback. They've yet in 2 off seasons have not invested in and around Justin Fields. They're doing him a tremendous disservice. I think they're going to be terrible. All right. And I feel badly for him and Bears fans.
Hey, don't be discounting N'Keal Harry now.
Right.
For that conditional 7th round pick.
Right. Yeah. Bill Belichick couldn't ship him out of town fast enough, and he was a 1st round pick 3 years ago. Right.
All right, let's go to Detroit. Dan Campbell, 3-13-1. They add Aiden Hutchinson high in the draft, maybe the steal of the draft in Williams out of Alabama, who's going to miss a little bit of time with the knee injury. I think their record they were better than their record. I think Campbell did a good job solidifying that organization, building a little culture there. I think they're better than 3-13. I think this team's going to be a pain in the neck this year. They're not going to probably win a ton of games, but I think they're going to be a pain in the neck to some teams, especially in that division.
I think they're going to win 7 games.
Okay.
And like you, I think they're much better than their record. And let's look at them offensively. They've got a running back. They got a tight end. They've got 2 tackles, a center, and 2 wide receivers.
Yep.
All right. Now, we don't think Jared Goff's the answer, but he did not that long ago, 4 years, in fact, take a team to a Super Bowl.
Right.
So he doesn't suck, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And now defensively, they don't really have a pass rush, and they can't really just go man to man and cover somebody. I think defensively, they're a work in progress, but believe it or not, offensively, they could be saltier than you think.
I agree.
And I think they're going to beat the Bears twice. They'll get the Vikings once. Now, all of a sudden, it's 3 division wins. I'll put the Lions at 7-10.
I agree. I think Campbell's doing a good job. I think most people thought Campbell would be a bust as a coach, but I think year 1, he's proven that he did a good job.
Well, and also the teams in the NFC North play both Eastern divisions. Well, the Lions have got to look at the Commanders, the Giants, and the Jets and think, oh, come on, man, we can win these games. Right. Yeah. So just keep that in mind with Washington. The schedule may also play in. It's a touch easier than last.
I agree. No, I think again, I think they're going to be a pain in the neck to some people. And again, that culture of Campbell, of tough and physical. And again, if Jamison Williams comes back soon, or, whenever he comes back, you're right. That offense is pretty good, actually. And if Goff plays well, they got a chance to win some games. All right, let's wrap it up in Minnesota. First-year coach Kevin O'Connell comes from Sean McVay out with the Rams, kind of the new young guy out of that tree of Sean McVay. 8-9 last year. They added Lewis Cine in the draft, Jordan Hicks in free agency, Zadarius Smith in free agency. There was some scuttlebutt here recently that the whole Zimmer and Cousins just couldn't stand each other. That's been brewing for years now.
And by the way, that was true. That was true. He didn't. I mean, Zimmer didn't necessarily want Cousins. That was a decision made above Zimmer, and Zimmer was done with them. Even though it's interesting, Kirk Cousins did go into New Orleans and outplay Drew Brees and beat the Saints 3 years ago. Listen, offense has not been the problem with the Vikings.
Right.
It hasn't. All right. The defense the last 2 years has been ranked 25th or worse in every major category.
Yep.
All right. The defense has been the problem. I know nobody likes Kirk Cousins. He's pretty good. He's not better than that, but he's pretty good. They've got one of the 3 best wide receivers in football. They have one of the 5 best tailbacks in football. Yes. And the offensive line has finally gotten to the point where they're average to slightly above.
Yep.
Offense will not be the problem with the Vikings. The Vikings have had a playoff roster the last 2 years and underperformed. I think this year in the NFC, they win 10 games. Packers win the division by a game. Vikings find a way to go 10-7 and get a wild card.
I'm with you. I think again, if you can, we'll see how O'Connell adjusts to being the coach as opposed to being the understudy. So that'll be an interesting thing, how that works as well. So I'm with you. I think the offensive talent is excellent. Thielen, Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, the tight end emerged last year a little bit. Conklin played pretty well. And again, Zadarius Smith on defense will help.
Yes.
So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So sounds like we both of us like Green Bay and Baltimore to win the divisions. You think Minnesota and Cincinnati wild cards? Cleveland maybe?
Yeah, I think Cincinnati stays ahead of Cleveland because of the whole Deshaun thing.
Right.
By the way, it'll be a minimum 8 games if for no other reason. I know, ladies and gentlemen, this is very unscientific. But week 8, the Browns are at the Bengals. Or no, I'm sorry. The Bengals are at the Browns week 8.
Okay.
Halloween night, Monday Night Football. Do you really think Roger Goodell wants Deshaun Watson's Cleveland debut or home debut to be Halloween night on national television against the Bengals? Now, trust me, Joe Troy and ESPN desperately hopes that that's the case. But I have a feeling, Jason, that we're going to be getting, a backup quarterback against Joe Burrow on Halloween night in Cleveland.
I better see you in your best goblin outfit when they show the one booth, the shot of the booth. You better be in your best
Jason, my daughter, now I'm obviously a lot bigger and fatter, and I may get this outfit. For 5 years, my daughter went as a toilet on Thanksgiving or on Halloween, a toilet in which what you do is you open up the lid and that's where people put the candy. Okay. I may go as a toilet. Okay. This year at Halloween.
Well, David, appreciate the great work, man. Great analysis. Again, you'll catch David on Saturdays on the SEC on CBS, Monday night in the booth with Troy and Joe with ESPN coverage, Miller and Moulton radio show in the mornings. You're seeing him during the summertime doing a lot of work with Sirius XM, NFL radio, Mad Dog Sports Radio and such. Does a great job covering all sports, not just football. He's very, very knowledgeable on all fronts, very up top. How's beautiful Fort Myers these days before we get you out of here?
Well, it's a lot like Tampa, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's about 94 degrees and it rains at about 4 o'clock.
You got it. Well, David, have a great summer, man. We'll look forward to
Thanks.
seeing you in the coverage and appreciate the time.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Have a great week, and we'll see you next time on the Powers on Sports podcast.